Okay, it's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's talk about Avengers Endgame. I will keep this spoiler free. If you've been invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe thus far, why are you not going to go see Avengers Endgame? This is kind of the culmination of everything they've been building to. I know I probably said that about Infinity War last time, but this certainly is bringing a lot of things to a head that began all the way back in 2008. When I was talking about Infinity War last April, I might have been a little bit harsher on it, just from the standpoint of saying, can this function as its own standalone movie? Obviously, it can. It's building up from all these threads that have been interconnected throughout other movies in this universe. So I know I kind of docked a point from it for that, just because I was like, well, cinematically it doesn't work. But then I gave it more of a compliment in saying it's not really functioning the way a typical movie should. It functions more like an event comic. I want to say Endgame still continues that. Like, this is still that company-wide crossover event that is reaching its conclusion, but it's able to do it in a more streamlined way than what Infinity War did, and that has to do with a lot of what happened in Infinity War. So you really can't have one without the other. I give it a couple more points over Infinity War because it is more focused, because it is honed in on this core group of characters now. In Infinity War, it was great. It was a great spectacle to see all these worlds colliding, to see all these characters finally meet each other, for the first time, and team up and fight the bad guy and everything like that, and hordes of enemies. And there are those moments here in this movie as well, but you feel like you worked yourself up to it a little bit more so in this film than you did in previous installments. A good majority of Endgame is very quiet. It's very, like I said, narrowed down to just this core group of characters and how they go about dealing with the aftermath of the Thanos Infinity Snap. Again, I'm not going to get into too many details because I really don't want to spoil much of the surprises that await you in this movie. Let's just say, there's a lot to take in this film, and for a casual viewer who maybe knows a little bit here and there about the MCU, you'll still get a lot out of it. But for someone who, like myself, who has kept, pretty much involved with this franchise since day one, there is a lot of good payoff in this grand story. There are a lot of good Easter eggs. There's a lot of good thematic elements that they come back to and revisit from previous movies. There's a lot of narratives that are able to pick up right where they left off. But at the same time, they are able to take these characters into new and strange directions that I wasn't anticipating this movie to take them in. 15 minutes into the movie, let's put it that way, it goes someplace that I didn't think it was gonna go. And I'm not gonna be any more specific than that. It's something I've seen more common in television shows with regards to season-long arcs and things of that nature. I really wasn't anticipating what was going to be the core part of the movie and how it would impact the characters, how our characters would be changed by this certain element. There were some interesting interesting things they did with certain characters, but they endeared to me very quickly. And also, there were some character building moments and some story arcs that came about in this particular element that I really liked, and it made the resolution of the film all the more fulfilling and gut-wrenching at the same time. Yeah, there's a lot to take in with this film. It handled the comedy, I feel, a little bit better. It wasn't too much of a, let's say, outright crowd pleaser like Infinity War was. Of course, like I mentioned before, there are these huge epic moments that you, as a fan, will enjoy, but they don't really arrive until about the last portion of the film, when everything kind of is building to that grand epic confrontation. Then that's when you get to see the more, iconic imagery that you're expecting from the Marvel Universe. But leading up into that, there was interesting choices with characterization, interesting usage of comedy. They're playing up a certain character's insecurities for a comedic effect, but then there is a lot of like vulnerability at the heart of it. So you're laughing, but then you're immediately kind of taken aback by like just how human this character can be. There's a fair amount of going down memory lane, let's say. If you have been invested in the MCU thus far, it's going to feel, I don't know, part of me was getting a sense of, oh yeah, the deja vu, it's there. But then another part of me was kind of like, okay. The logistical side of me, the financier in me was like, okay, we can recycle some stuff. Sure, save some costs, why not? But I was able to put that aside for the sake of just being in the moment and enjoying seeing how these characters are perceiving the road that brought them to this point. I know I'm being extremely vague and extremely like just as non-specific as possible. It dawned on me kind of what this movie really was. It is a culmination of 11 years now of Marvel movies, but it's also a good opportunity for us to kind of see where we've gone with these characters since day one, and to be able to appreciate it in hindsight. Call it what you will, sort of a greatest hits of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or like I said, the trip down memory lane, but it really works well here, and you can tell that a lot of the actors are really getting into being able to cover this territory with these characters. Fine performances all around from the cast. This is, I think, the most like emotional I've seen a lot of these characters. They're not all non-stop quip factories like they have been in the past. Like, I'd say out of the main Avengers movies, with Ultron being the quippiest unnecessarily, Endgame is actually pretty reserved in that aspect. They can have, like I said, laughs here and there, but they're able to understand that there are some pretty heavy stakes, and the characters accept that. They're not smart alecky in the face of it. When they have an epic line or a quip that's just right, it is earned, it is warranted, but also they're able to really make you invest in this end of the line feel that you get with a lot of them. I'm going to leave you on this note, in that one thing I appreciate about this particular Avengers movie is that it resisted the urge, and this will be a little bit of a spoiler here, it resisted the urge to reset things completely, to bring things back to what we consider to be status quo. They choose a path on which to go about the plot, and some things that I knew were going to happen in the movie, they happen, but they don't happen in the way that I had a feeling they were. In other words, like, just completely fresh start. No, things have changed drastically in this franchise. The characters, I mean, this really isn't a spoiler, everyone's anticipating this, but characters who came back, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some adaptation needed, and I'm really curious to see how they go about addressing this new status quo for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How they're going to address all these things that have transpired. And we won't have to wait long, because Spider-Man Far From Home is only a couple months out, and I'm extremely curious now. I'm more curious about that movie than I was prior to seeing Endgame now, because with the way things are left off in Endgame, I have just got to know what Peter Parker and company kind of make of this whole thing. I don't know, unless all the marketing's kind of like throwing us off, and it turns out, oh, Far From Home actually takes place before Infinity War, and haha, fooled you. No, I'm curious to see what Phase 4 is going to look like. Will I have the same amount of investment in further Marvel movies now that this core storyline that has kind of driven everything for 11 years is not going to be at the focus anymore? You know, will I be able to still invest in a Guardians 3? Hopefully so, because James Gunn is back directing it, and I'm genuinely curious to see what he does with it now, because there's some dynamics that are set up for that. Like I said, I'm curious to see what the Spider-Man team did. I'm curious to see if at all the Fox properties have an entry point into this universe now that things have kind of been shaken up quite a bit. It was, I felt, a great kind of conclusion to the story they've been telling thus far. And I'm not gonna lie, I got some waterworks going towards the end. There are moments in this film that you're gonna smile broadly, that you're gonna pump your fist a little bit in the air towards. There are character defining moments in this film that either will tug on your sentimental heartstrings or completely devastate you. And I experienced all of that tonight in the wee hours of the morning. I'm not tired, but as soon as I turn off this camera, I know I'm gonna be zonked out. I hope I was as vague as I possibly could be while still being informative, while still trying to tantalize you into seeing it even more without giving too much of a carrot for you. Let me know what you guys thought of the film. I can understand if some people, some fans might be let down by certain elements of the movie. I can understand if some people take umbrage with the way they took certain characters, the direction they decide to take them. For all I have to say to that is, that's the magic of creative media, people. That's the magic of these licensed properties. What works in the comic may not necessarily work on the screen. In the comic, they've been around for decades. Here, you're trying to tell a very truncated, very finite story within the realm of the cinema. I don't know, I appreciated what they did here because it really made me enjoy these characters all the more. Maybe one day I'll get into more spoilerific talk, maybe on a 3 Geeks or something like that, but until then, enjoy it.